Hey there, Wendy here with Jazzydoodledesigns, and today I thought we would do a color along in Makiko Inatome's Seasonal Wreath of Plant and Friends. It is summer, and so we are going to be doing a summer page. This one, we are going to do this circus page. Isn't it fun? So what I thought I would do is I am going to use Prismacolor pencils, and I am going to attempt to make a vintage scene. I'm going to be using some more muted colors, and we'll see if I can pull it off. If not, it will be kind of pastel-y maybe. But guys, I looked at all of my pencils, and quite honestly, I felt like these had the best palette for the more vintage sepia muted kind of tones I was looking for. So that's what we're gonna do today. So grab your pencils and let's go.
Hey there, it's Blooper Reel Wendy here. No, I'm just kidding. It's voiceover Wendy. And so I thought today we would chat a little bit about what I'm doing on screen. But along with that, I thought we would chat a little bit about evening primrose, the Chilean evening primrose flower, and some of the weird kind of facts that I found out about the circus. So I'm not going to go into all of some of the animal abuse facts and some of the history of that. I try very hard on this channel to be a source of, fun things and information, and just generally kind of a safe space to go to get away from some of those kind of things. So I'm not really going to be talking about that. So I'll just kind of skip over that. But I don't want anyone to feel like I am not addressing it because I somehow condone that or don't feel like it's important to talk about. I do. I just don't feel like my channel is the place to talk about it. So it is a very important issue that needs to be addressed, and it needs to be handled more efficiently to protect animals. So I would encourage you, if you're interested in that kind of stuff, to do your own research on it, because a lot of that is very sad, and I would like to see more change coming in terms of that. But I want to bring fun facts and information to this space so that we have a safe harbor to go to. So that being said, let's chat about what I'm doing on screen. So I'm going to use Prismacolor. I am going very much for kind of that vintage, kind of toned down, more muted reds, more like you see the henna that I'm using here on the hat, and more of the French grays and the sepia tones. So when we get to the flowers, you're probably going to be like, why aren't they yellow? Because evening primrose is yellow. But I'm the boss of my own coloring book, as D.D. Williams says. And so I chose to color them kind of a peachy brown color, just to make it work with the palette. So that is kind of why I'm doing that. Now, with all of these things, I tend to use a darker color, kind of go into the shadowy areas and lay it down. And then with the mid-tone, just bring it out a little bit. And then follow it up with my lightest color as the blender. Now, at the end of the page, with a lot of my color alongs, I will go back over everything with a blender, like a colorless blender, My personal favorite is the Caran d'Ache blenders, and it's my understanding that the blending stick, the full blender, or I think they call it a brightener, that entire stick is the colorless blender. Well, it's sold in a 2-pack with one that's encased in wood. It's my understanding that the one that's encased in wood is the same material. It's encased in wood so you can sharpen it and get into the smaller areas, which kind of makes sense. So I will be testing that out because I wasn't aware of that. But I saw that somewhere the other day. I wish I could remember where I saw it so I could give credit. But anyway, I'm not sure if that's 100% true. They didn't seem to know for 100%, but it makes sense to me. So anyway, but you could also use white, or you could just use your light color and burnish down a little harder. So in some areas, you'll see that it burnishes just fine. And, you know, I don't even think I use it on this page, but it's been a while since I colored this, so I can't remember, to be honest. But I like the muted tones that I ended up with. I'm not sure I got the vintage vibe that I was really going for, but I do like the palette overall. So anyway, this is the second time I'm recording it, which is really frustrating because I had recorded over half of this color along, and my program had used the wrong microphone, and I sounded like I was about 50 miles away speaking into my pillow, which is probably not what you want to listen to. So anyway, okay. So let's talk about this beautiful flower. It is commonly called evening primrose, and it's found in, it's native to eastern and central North America, from Newfoundland west to Alberta, and down to the southeast of Florida and southwest to Texas. So it really likes more temperate and subtropical regions. And evening primrose oil is produced from the plant. So that's kind of interesting. I didn't know that. It is also commonly called the evening star, sundrop, weedy evening primrose, German rampion, hogweed, king's cure-all, and fever plant. Now, this is what I found interesting. It has a lifespan of 2 years, and it grows up to 5 feet 3 inches tall, which is 1.6 meters for those of you that use a more logical system. The leaves are 3 to 7 inches long and about an inch or 3/4 of an inch to 2.5 inches wide. So they produce a tight spiral their first year, and then, or a tight rosette their first year, and then they spiral, it says spirally on the stem the second year. Not sure what that means, but I'm not a gardener. So blooming lasts from late spring to late summer, and the flowers are produced on a tall spike and last only until the following noon. They open visibly fast every evening, producing an interesting spectacle, hence the name evening primrose. So I thought that was really interesting. I think morning glories do the same thing, but maybe they come out in the morning and then close in the afternoon. But I think that's kind of interesting. I also thought it was interesting that their nectar is invisible to the naked eye, but you can see it under ultraviolet light, and it is visible to the pollinators like moths, butterflies, and bees. And like I stated earlier, the blooms are normally yellow and they have 4 bilobed petals. The seeds of the plant are often used for birds' food, and it is a larval host for both the primrose moth and the white-lined spink moth. Over the centuries, indigenous people in North America have used the plant as food and traditional medicine. It was introduced to Europe in the early 17th century as an ornamental plant for their botanical gardens, where their flowers are favored for nectar by pollinators and its seed supply for food for other birds. Now, most of the plant is edible, and it has a pretty mild taste. It says the roots can be eaten raw or cooked like potatoes. Did I say roots? I hope so. And the leaves can be eaten raw or in salads or cooked like spinach in soups. So they use it as a dietary aid and to reduce fatigue. Now, that being said, places like the Mayo Clinic and the American Cancer Society and places like that say that there isn't good evidence to support their use for eczema, diabetic neuropathy, or premenstrual syndrome, and they really don't endorse it for health conditions. Now, that being said, I personally believe that a lot of Western medicine could be improved by utilizing more Eastern philosophy and Eastern medicine into our system. I think we've gotten into a system that's very, we're not looking to prevent things. We're not looking to heal things naturally. We're trying to use pharmaceuticals, and we're trying to fix things after it happens. And so things like acupuncture and herbal remedies are often poo-pooed off. Now, I've also met people that, sell doTERRA and things like that think they're a cure-all for literally everything. I think that in life you have to have a balance between the two. My acupuncturist said, if I'm having a heart attack, I don't want you to call another acupuncturist. Please get me to the hospital. But for many things, acupuncture can be an answer. So that's just my 2 cents because, we're just friends sitting here chatting and coloring, right? So with these flowers, this is where I'm introducing kind of the browner tones or the peachier browns. I actually like this color combination. I wasn't really sure. I was just trying to kind of play around and find a color to deepen it that wouldn't make it, oftentimes with peaches, when you go darker, it tends to make it more orange, and that's definitely not what I was going for. And so I was looking to the browns, and I think that this worked pretty well. And then actually bringing in a brown here into the darkest shadows. And then I'll blend it out with the beige sienna and then back to the light peach for the overall blend. But let me know what you think. Do you think it's odd to have brown in the flowers? Or do you think it worked? I'd be really curious what you guys think. Okay. And then the rest of this article tends to go into, how deep do you plant them and more of the farming aspect of it. So that isn't really, what I was looking for. But I thought those were a couple of good articles. Ellie says if you subscribe to the channel, she'll do a jump spinny. Oh, come on. Won't you please subscribe to the channel? I'll do one more. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about circuses right now. So I'm going to tell you some fun kind of history type of facts that I thought were interesting. Some more than others for sure. The word circus comes from the Greek by way of Latin, and it came from the Greek word kirkos, and it meant ring or circle. And they actually were referring to a place where the Romans would hold all kinds of entertainment, gladiator battles, chariot races, and even feeding their enemies to the lions. Okay, Wendy, we're supposed to be keeping it lighthearted. But these stadiums would also reenact legendary battles, and they even went so far as to fill them completely with water. Not completely, but like enough water they could actually have ships in there that would float so that they could depict their battles convincingly, which is wild to me when you think about the technical side of that, like what it would take to encase enough water to actually float a ship and still have it be spectator friendly, like back in the Roman days. I don't know, seems crazy to me. But anyway, these Roman circuses really were big back in the day, and the largest was called Circus Maximus, and it was located in Rome. And though it's been built and rebuilt back in the day, it could hold up to 250,000 spectators. That is enormous. That is crazy to even think about. And once again, it boggles my mind to think back to the lack of engineering and technical knowledge that they had. They just had it on a different level, I guess. Now, with the fall of the Roman Empire, these big buildings, really kind of fell out of favor, and a lot of the entertainment shifted to traveling festivals and shows, right? And so the modern circus itself wasn't even born until the 18th century. Now, we kind of equate, when we think of a circus, we always think of the big ring, right? And that came from a guy named Philip Astley. And he was a cavalry officer that did a lot of tricks on his horse, flips and whatnot. And while he wasn't unique in that, he was the only one that was doing it in circles. Other people were doing it in a straight line. So he actually set up an amphitheater in 1768 so that people could come and actually see him perform. And he hired jugglers and acrobats to provide halftime entertainment while he could take a break. And so many call him the father of the modern circus, which I didn't know that because I thought it was interesting. To me, I always think of Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey, and I guess I never gave a whole lot of thought to what came before that. So in 1773, his act became so popular, he built an amphitheater in London and named it after himself. And this has actually been depicted in novels like by Jane Austen and Charles Dickens. So it was quite a big deal, I guess. Now, here's one of those things that I love to learn. I really enjoy when I hear about how an expression is born. And the one we're going to learn about today is the expression to jump on the bandwagon. So before the American Civil War, a guy by the name of Dan Rice was the most famous clown in the country. His shows sold out, and he was very well known. And so it made sense at the time for Zachary Taylor to ask Rice to endorse his presidential campaign. And Rice accepted the offer, and he invited Zachary Taylor to go on his Circus bandwagon tour and use that to help him drum up support. And it was so successful that other candidates began seeking out their own bandwagon, and the rest is history. So I find that fascinating. I love hearing where those quirky little expressions come from. And I didn't know that one. Okay, so in 1792, John Bill Ricketts brought the circus to the United States. And he opened it in Philadelphia and even had President George Washington over to watch it. So that's kind of interesting. So in 1825, Joshua Purdy Brown was the first person to introduce the big top to the circus, which is kind of how most of us probably, think of a circus as having that big tent. Now, we discussed how many places are banning the use of animals, or I touched on it briefly. So in recent years, the contemporary circus has really changed to be more into costumes and the acrobats and story development, or, depicting a story. So you can think of things like the Cirque du Soleil or the Circus Oz as examples of that. Now, Cirque du Soleil was a Canadian entertainment company, and it had elaborate stores. It has some pretty elaborate shows. I personally went to one and absolutely loved it. And my husband, who is not by any means into fine art and dancing and things like that, he actually really enjoyed it as well. It's pretty impressive. But it was actually formed by two French street performers, and it made its debut in 1984 as a part of the celebration of the 450th anniversary of French explorer Jacques Cartier, who discovered Canada. So another thing that I learned is that the leotard was actually named by a trapeze artist. He wore a onesie type of outfit and named it after himself. His name was Jules Leotard. And we still use that name today, with gymnastics and whatnot. So, talking about famous people, Enrico Rastelli was the most famous and successful juggler of all time, and he held the world record for over a century. Now, on the color along itself, I'm using a white Prismacolor just to kind of blend and kind of smooth out some of the harsher lines there in our flower. I just wanted them to have a little bit of a smoother blend than I was getting, and I felt like the white would be effective in this case because normally I don't like the washed out look that white gives it because it will lighten your colors. I felt like it was a benefit in this case, so that's why I'm using it here. Okay, so his record, which was held for over a century, was juggling 10 small balls. And he was quite the celebrity. And thousands of people attended his funeral when he died. And he was only 34. So that's really sad. Let's see. Pablo Funk was the first recorded black circus owner in history. He was born in England, and he managed a circus which maintained a popular following for 30 years in the Victoria era. Yet for all of his success in his own lifetime, he is most famous for his appearance in a rock song. After an old poster for his show was bought by a man named John Lennon. The poster would inspire Lennon to write "Bean for the Benefit of Mr. Kite" for Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. Lennon once said that everything from the song is in that poster. So that's kind of interesting. I'm going to butcher this name. Hakalaya Bailey initially followed in his father's footsteps by becoming a farmer. However, he purchased this elephant called Old Bet. And Old Bet was one of the first elephants ever to make it to the United States. And Bailey learned that there was a lot of money to be had in touring with his elephant. So he organized a traveling show, trained a dog and some pigs for substance, and before he knew it, Bailey had formed one of the earliest American circuses. Sadly, Old Bet his life would come to a violent end. Allegedly, Bailey's traveling show encountered a farmer who was furious that people would pay hard-earned money just to see a strange animal. Since this was pre-internet and the man couldn't just take his frustrations out on random strangers on Twitter. Oh, the shade. The farmer got his gun and killed Old Bet for the crime of existing. So that's really sad. Oh my gosh. For what it's worth, Old Bet's murderer was convicted and she was commemorated with a statue in 1825. In 1922, another elephant and his trainer made a pilgrimage of more than 50 miles to lay a tributary wreath at the memorial statue. So back to on screen. I chose the Celadon green because I really wanted it to be muted and in the background. The vintage look to me is turquoises and kind of like that, the brown reds and the brown peaches and I don't know, just more of those kind of colors. So that's why I chose this color. And I think it's a really beautiful color in its own right. But I think it pairs very well with this gray-green light, and I think I use pale sage too. But I might use sap green light. You'll see in a minute. I guess we'll see in a minute. So at this point, Bailey stopped into a store in Connecticut. He met a young man there, and his name was P.T. Barnum. So I bet y'all know where this story's going, right? However, contrary to popular belief, the circus known as Barnum and Bailey was not an epic team-up of Elijah Bailey and P.T. Barnum. The name was born in 1888 when Barnum allowed his name to be used in partnership with James Bailey, the adopted son of Halacha's distant relative, Frederick Bailey. So that's interesting. So I didn't see it turn in there. So back in the day, circuses were actually criticized by the press, not for their mistreatment of animals or anything sensible, but for their less than holy purposes, since it distracted people from more pious things to spend their money on. One Staten Island newspaper article complained that the Great Eastern Circus was coming to town just one time meant that the community wasted enough money to sustain 3 missionaries among the heathen for a year. The Chinese State Circus is a highly admired and respected circus that focuses on human performances without any animals. So, It includes martial arts, Chinese opera, and the tradition of Chinese acrobats, which goes back almost 2,000 years. The state circus has toured over 100 different countries. I bet that is stunning. There was a dynamic duo of brothers, Bassie and Adrian, and they were two of the Netherlands' most popular children entertainers. They dressed up as clowns and an acrobat, respectively, and they would go on different adventures. They did world traveling and fighting supernatural forces. So they were a part of the circus at one point, and then also on TV, stage, and radio. Let me know in the comments, are you all afraid of clowns? I'm not sure. I should Google that, and we should talk about it. I don't know why so many people are afraid of clowns. Is it because as a kid you were introduced to a clown and they were just weird? Or what? Okay, y'all, so I Googled it. And this is Scientific American. And it says coulrophobia, or the fear of clowns, is actually a worldwide phenomenon. It affects adults and children from many different cultures. And so they wanted to look at how did this come to be? Okay, so they did a questionnaire of 9,807 people between 8 and 77. More than half, 53.5%, said they were scared of clowns, at least to some degree, with 5% saying they were extremely afraid of them. Interestingly, this percentage reported an extreme fear of clowns, which is actually slightly higher than many other phobias such as animals, blood injection, heights, closed spaces, and flying. They said that more women are afraid of clowns than men, and they're not really clear on why, but it echoes fears such as snakes and spiders as well. It tends to decrease with age. So now they said, well, where did this come from? So a new set of questions gave 8 plausible explanations. So number 1, an eerie or unsettling feeling due to clowns' makeup make them look not quite human. So they equate it to like dolls or mannequins. Their exaggerated facial features convey a direct sense of threat. The makeup hides emotional signals and creates uncertainty. The color of clown makeup reminds us of death, infection, or blood injury, or evokes disgust or avoidance. So here on screen, I'm just really deepening up the shadows. And I'm sorry, I'm a touch off screen right there. But I just really wanted to create a little bit more of a contrast there. Clowns are unpredictable, and that makes us uncomfortable. It's learned from family members. Negative portrayals in popular culture, like it, or maybe just a frightening experience with a clown. They found the final explanation is having a scary personal experience with the clown had the lowest level of agreement. So that's really interesting. I personally am not afraid of clowns. I always found it interesting that other people were, but I don't know. I don't think that fears are rational things. So I hope you found that little side quest interesting. Okay, so next, I thought this article was kind of interesting. It was 10 fun facts about Ringling Brothers. And I chose this one because I think those of us that have ever been to a circus, most likely, especially if you're around my age, have maybe even been to the Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey Circus. So, in 1919, the Ringling Brothers Circus merged with P.T. Barnum and James Anthony Bailey to create the Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey Circus. The Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus annually visits between 90 and 120 cities in North America, and no city ever sees the same show twice. So I guess they change the acts at different places. I'm not sure. More than 10 million people experience the greatest show on earth every year. That's a lot of people. And this article was written in 2016. So keep that in mind. I still thought they were interesting facts. In 1968, the Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey Circus Clown College was founded to teach and preserve the art of clowning, but women weren't admitted until 1970. Fun fact, Wyoming was the first state to allow women the right to vote. I always am proud of that fact. In 1995, the Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey Center for Elephant Conservation was established on 200 acres in Central Florida to care for and support the reproduction, retirement, and research of the endangered Asian elephant. There are less than 35,000 Asian elephants left on the planet. According to the CEC, which is the Center for Elephant Conservation, elephants eat about 150 to 250 pounds of hay daily, as well as grains, fruits, and vegetables. They each drink about 30 to 50 gallons of water a day. Wow, that's a lot. That's a lot. With the purchase of a ticket to this year's circus, you get an all-access pre-show pass that allows you to join the performers on the show floor 1 hour before the circus starts to clown around with the clowns, learn circus skills, or try on a ringmaster jacket. And there was a film titled The Greatest Showman on Earth starring Hugh Jackman, and it was released, or at least it was supposed to be released in December of 2017. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Okay, so right now I'm just trying to incorporate those colors that I've already used in the picture in other areas of the picture. So, you know, the little drum that the horse is standing on. I guess we'll get there, but the whole point of this is just to incorporate these same colors throughout the picture to give it a little bit of balance. Now, traditionally, the circus tent might be a bright yellow and a red, but I really didn't want to introduce any bright, vibrant colors to this picture at all. So that's why I'm just using like a toned down off, you know, I'm hoping that it kind of reads off-white. Okay, so next up in our learning is 7 circus superstitions. So number 1, never sit with your back to the ring, because circus performers consider this like their home. It's their livelihood. And if you turn your back on it, you're basically turning your back on your well-being. So it's considered a superstition. You just don't do it. You don't sleep in the ring. Now, I'm not sure why that would be an issue. No whistling in the tents. It says the riggers who hung everything inside the big top communicated by whistling. If someone else entered the tent whistling, it could have been misinterpreted as a cue. Fitting with our nautical theme, this tradition came from sailing ships where riggers often worked before coming to circuses. Well, that's really interesting. I wonder how they communicate with whistles. I wonder if it's like 2 whistles, I'm done. 3 whistles, please come help me. Or what? I'm not sure exactly how that goes. But here I'm just incorporating those same kind of beigey tones from the big top into the drum, and I believe ultimately even into the horse. Number 4, green costumes are considered bad luck. Now, other circumstances, this is one that has obviously went away because we see green costumes in the circus now. But, you know, it's kind of like step on a crack, break your mama's back kind of thing. Elephant hair is considered lucky. While it's lucky to have elephant hair, she's always heard that it's luckier if you give it to someone else. So they always look for elephant hairs and then give them to other people. Number 6, always enter the ring with your right foot first. Every show is different, and it's something consistent. And, you know, it's like that saying, you know, start out off on the right foot, literally. And they never say goodbye. It's always see you down the road. So I wanted to bring a little bit of brightness to the page without overwhelming it. And I felt like cream was just the answer. It's a really, I love this color. I use this color a lot. This pencil's long because it's been replaced, I think, twice. But because I use it in almost every time I use my Prismacolors, it's just a really nice balancer with browns, with peaches. You can brighten up certain colors. I really like the look of it blended with pinks. So it's that, and sand is probably my other most used. Cream, sand, and goldenrod are my 3 favorite yellows. And I think I've used all 3 of them in this picture as well. But I just felt like I wanted a little bit, it needed a little spunk, but not the brightness. And I think this serves the bill. Now, while we were on superstitions, I thought I would check another website and see if there was more. So in addition to the ones that I mentioned, there's also do not bring a peacock feather into the big top, don't touch other people's props, circus ladies should not knit. Now that one's interesting. Don't go back for a prop once you've headed towards the ring. Never count the audience. Never move a dressing trunk more than once, or the circus will end up moving the same number of times. Don't pick up money found in the big top. It will bring you bad business, and do not count your money on your bed. Do not eat peanuts in the dressing room. Boots and slippers and shoes should never be in a trunk tray or on the dressing table, which I would agree with. Like, I'm not putting my shoes on my dresser. Don't look behind yourself in a circus parade. It brings the sadness of the past with you. Do not whistle. 1, because you'll never work there again. 2, a long time ago, ring boys were old sea hands and communicated through whistles. If you whistle, you may confuse them and be responsible for potentially dangerous consequences. Do wear something under your costume, please. Do show elephants in your posters with their trunks up. An elephant's trunk pointed downwards symbolizes mourning. A circus band should only play Stars and Stripes in emergency. Beware, if a bird gets trapped under the canvas, someone will die. This is an ancient Greek belief where birds are departed souls who come back to lead the way. To bring good luck, you say Merdre instead of break a leg before a show, and keep an elephant hair in your pocket. A few buskers notes. When busking, put your hat on the ground with a few coins in it, tails up. If you mess up a trick, do it again or all your tricks will be messed up. Do not juggle yogurt. Okay, that one's a little random. And if you get a boy to help you hold the hat, give him a bottle in his other hand with a fly in it. Tell him not to let the fly escape. Okay, so some of those were a little out there. Okay, a few more facts. Let's see. Some of these we've already talked about. Performers let us know that their acts are done with their own signature, maybe a wink, a hand gesture, or a ta-da. Australia only has one full-time circus school, the Flying Fruit Fly Circus. They don't actually train bugs, though. Well, dang it. Charlie Chaplin, one of the most influential clowns and comedians, once entered a Charlie Chaplin look-alike contest and came in third. I like that one. That's funny. Cary Grant started his performance career as an acrobat and a juggler. Like, for some of you young folk, you're like, who's Cary Grant? Oh, shoot. Okay. Can you guys juggle? I can't juggle. Like, literally juggle. Not, like, figuratively. I can figuratively juggle pretty well. I can't literally juggle, though. If I threw stuff in the air above my head, it would come down and hit my head. So, in circus lingo, a strolling vendor who sells concession items like popcorn and toys to the audience is called a butcher. Well, that's gross. Okay, see this piece I'm coloring right now? What is that? I chose to color it like it was a scarf, but the scarf is like underneath the shirt or the vest. I had no idea, so I figured if I just colored it all the same color, no one would notice. But in 1952, The Greatest Show on Earth was the first film that Steven Spielberg ever saw in a theater. A free ticket is sometimes called an Annie Oakley with a small hole punched in the ticket because it looks like sharpshooter Annie Oakley's bullet holes. And Oakley is rumored to have given bullet-perforated playing cards to kids to use as free passes. Did you know that the human cannonballs travel between 60 and 70 miles an hour when they're shot? Flying through the air that fast is like driving down the highway without a windshield. Wow. Yeah, I don't think I would like that. So the reason I chose pink for these, because I debated quite a while because, like, the sky's the limit with colors here, but I wanted my colors to be kind of triangular. So like the red on the top, the red with the big top, and then a touch of red on the elephant and a touch of red on, I think the chimpanzee has some red. And then same with the blue. Like we've got the blue in the flags, we got the blue on the two drums, or on the drum and on the collar of the horse. So I'm just trying to balance my colors out a little bit here. And I thought that these colors looked pretty good. I tried to make hers more pink and his more red, but overall, that was my thought process with that. Let's see. After living in the London Zoo for 16 years, Jumbo the elephant was sold to P.T. Barnum and came to the U.S. in 1882. Jumbo inspired Jumbo mania, and Jumbo soon became a synonym for large. So the Chinese circus dates back to the Qin dynasty, 225 to 207 BC. Wow. In 1971, the first week of August was designated National Clown Week by President Richard Nixon. All right, no joking about that. Happy Cooks is a traditional Chinese circus act that involves plate spinning and juggling food or kitchen utensils. There are 3 types of clowns: Whiteface, the oldest, Auguste, Zany and Dim, and the character clown, Happy Hobo or Sad Tramp. Social circus programs attempt to engage marginalized kids in the circus arts, utilizing skill and ensemble buildings as tools for empowerment. Before graduating to long, pointy weaponry, sword swallowers practice their craft with spoons, plastic tubes, knitting needles, and wire coat hangers. That is just the weirdest thing. Most contortionists are either front benders or back benders, depending on which direction their spines are more flexible in. I didn't realize they only went one way. I just assumed that if you were that limber, you just were limber in all the ways. The stuff we're learning. I love useless knowledge. I really do. Enterology is the practice of squeezing one's body into a very small box or container. The only full-time permanent sideshow left in the world is the Coney Island Circus Sideshow, right here in New York City. Oh, excuse me, y'all. I am so sorry to yawn in your ear. Is that clown car a regular 2-door coupe? Nope. Circuses hollow out the insides of small cars to create as much space as possible, and then they pile in as many clowns and large props as possible. So remember we talked about the juggler that held the record with 10 balls for like 100 years? The new world record for the most balls juggled is held by Alex Barron for completing 25 cascades of 11 juggling balls at once. That's crazy. I don't even think I could juggle 2. Okay, I'm going to take a short pause to say if you're watching this, in 2024 in mid-June, make sure you get your entry into the giveaway for 2,000 subscribers. So You just need to go to the giveaway page and watch the video if you want. It tells you all the rules, but basically you need to enter the word doodle along with what you want to see more of on the channel and your 3 favorite pencils, like for color longs and stuff. I really want the channel to be about what you guys want to see on the channel, and the best way I can find that is to ask. So now's your chance to let me know. What do you want to see more of? Do you hate when I teach you useless knowledge about circus clowns? Or do you like that? Because I will tell you, it's really hard to talk one-sided for a long time. But I know a lot of you like to put me on in the background while you're coloring or washing dishes or whatever. I do that. I do this with people doing adult coloring. I also do it with true crime. I want something in the background while I'm coloring so that, it kind of makes you feel like you have someone else in the room with you sharing. And with adult coloring, I really want to create that community where you feel like you do have people that you can reach out to, ask questions, share your successes, share your frustrations, get advice. I love Instagram for that. I love that Instagram has a better platform for that. I shouldn't say that. My main love is YouTube, but it's harder to communicate on YouTube because everything is very public. You don't have the ability to send that private message with maybe a snapshot of what you're coloring and say, what is this piece? Or what color do you think would look good? Or, hey, I just finished this and I'm super excited. What do you think? Because for me, the people in my real life, so to speak, I'm just showing you here. I forgot. I don't know what I did. I think I hit the button twice to record, so it stopped recording because I got done coloring that and hit the button and it started to record. So yeah, I'm an idiot. But I basically just used the blue with a little bit of white in the center to give it some change. And I really debated on what to do here, if I wanted to introduce something into the wreath. Did I want to put a dark background here in the center? What did I want to do? Did I want to add some glitter to the stars? Because, we're always kind of tempted. But I felt like with the vintage vibe, it wouldn't really go. So I reached out to Christine and I asked her, and I got her advice too. And what we kind of came up with was, maybe just introducing, we toyed around with several different options, and this is the one that I chose. And I would suggest, when you're debating with yourself on what to do, if you can, photocopy your page and try out different things. If you get to this point, because at one point I considered doing kind of like a sky in that background, and maybe not the entire thing, maybe just a piece behind the stars and the moon, but you don't know. And so I thought about using pan pastels because then you can erase. I think that's always a good, viable option. But even with pan pastels, you have to be careful because this is very white. And if you introduce something like a dark blue pan pastel, you could have a little bit of staining. In the end, I chose just to take that same blue that I had been using and ever so slightly kiss the paper behind the wreath just to add a little visual interest and to kind of tie the wreath together a little bit. And I like how this turned out. In the past, I used a darker color on a different wreath, and I didn't really like how it turned out. But anyway, you all, as always, I appreciate you. I appreciate you watching my videos, and I appreciate your feedback. I love hearing your comments, and I love chatting with you both on YouTube, in the comments section, as well as on Instagram or Facebook. Wherever you're comfortable, wherever you're hanging out is where I want to be. So at this point, all that's left is the little touch-ups. I put the black in the eyes and the darken up his hooves, and I fill in the trapeze line and things like that. So I am going to put just a little bit of music here, speed it up just a touch, and as the circus performers say, we'll see you down the road. Before I go, if you want to take part in the summer wreaths hashtag, it's hashtag Makiko Summer Wreaths, and you can color any summer page, and I'll flash on the screen now the video discussing the hashtag and how to participate. Thanks so much. Thank you for watching another video from Jazzydoodledesigns. If you enjoy adult coloring content, please consider subscribing. You can now find me on Instagram and Facebook as well. I welcome all comments and suggestions. Don't forget to like the video before you go. And until next time, take care.